Hello there, beautiful internet, and you fantastic creatures of the beyond. And my music is super loud. Let me lower it a bit. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing fantastic because I'm having a hell of a time. I have great news right before I tell you the horrible news. So the horrible news is that my Windows died, squealing and screaming at me, and I had no idea why. Just gave me a bunch of errors because I messed with the hibernation for some reason, and it just died. It literally died. I lost everything. So that was fun because I had to reinstall absolutely everything. Well, I didn't lose the work files, but whoa, it was a pain. It was a real pain to get it back on track. So yeah, I lost the entire day doing that. But at the same time, I have updated to 1.4, the beta. And well, I know it's still unstable in some areas, but there is one particular reason why I wanted to download it. Unfortunately, the reason could not be applied. Not this, wait. Here, I already worked in 1.3.2 and the scale is the old one from 3.7 something something something. But in 1.4 this scale is 1. And it's kind of important, this scale of units, because I had some big issues trying to transfer this into the HTML page. So let's have a look at the HTML page. This is how it looks right now. And this is because this one is called indexed standard. So the indexed standard is this page. And basically here I have started coding it manually to import all of these images and recreate the page itself with those elements. Like, for example, this is the background, then I have created the button itself, then the logo, the other button, and this is the image. But I realized rather soon that this would take time. And to be honest, this is the correct way to do it, because you have maximum control over what you are implementing. And as you can see, it's quite I don't know, you do lose clarity the more you zoom in, because obviously these are just PNGs, but you control where you set the elements, how you want to make the anchor texts, and so on and so forth. So that is really nice. But we are the lazy type of creatures of the beyond, so tada! Now this one is actually the object imported directly. So if we take a look at the code, let's ignore this for now. So this is all the code that I wrote for the CSS, and this is the object, and that's it. Nothing more. Just 3 lines of code, basically. Well, I mean, there are more lines, but the point is, like, these two are the body. Well, yeah, 3 probably if I want to remove some of the margins, which I should probably have done in hindsight. Let me do that really quick. So margin 0 and padding 0, just so we don't have any more extra edges. But there is something ultra cool about this. If I try to zoom in, you can see I can't go past, no matter how much I go, I'm at 500% already. This is how much I can zoom in. And if I can zoom out, bam. So this solves the problem with the lag. Oh, I can set it up here now. Okay, perfect. But it also keeps the clarity much better. There is only one big issue. The text. So I did not foresee this, but the text cannot format itself correctly. So right now I'm at 100%. If I zoom in at 200%, it does justify the text. And we can also see, and I'll show you guys this thing in a moment. You can see that the text here is also aligned correctly. If I go back to 100, well, it starts shifting kind of badly. And I think this is related to the scale because it's not on 1:1 scale. Let's have a look here. Oh geez, how do I move you? Okay, we'll talk about the disadvantages and things like that in a moment. But as you can see here, the wide and height are specific, but then the scale here in the viewport is 1/3, which is this level of pixel shenanigans. And yeah, I think this is creating the issues with, well, it's not the only reason, but it's one of the main reasons, I suspect. I'm not 100% sure yet. On the other side, the text itself, the paragraph, is separated into these T-spans, and these T-spans are wrapped into other T-spans. And then you have the text. So it's kind of a pain to work with justifying text. Now, the other version that I have done, this one we can write all in divs and CSS, so it's gonna work right out of the box. But obviously it's gonna take more time. So let's talk a bit about the advantages and disadvantages. And I wrote them here. So, big disadvantages with SVGs in HTML. First of all, it does not have great SEO adaptability. Search engines can't fully grasp the semantics of the content and may not follow the links properly. It may require additional steps to ensure that bots crawl correctly, for example, sitemaps. Where is... not full screen. Damn it, I don't know. Oh, WordWrap, yeah. Then we have the cross-browser compatibility, since this is kind of an issue because not all browsers are born equal, obviously. And in older browser it might not even generate completely. But the workaround is to create them as PNGs and just create them by hand. And Firefox has some issues with SVGs, because SVGs have very limited support in browsers, and it's kind of a shaky territory. Then you have the susceptibility to JavaScript injection, which we have talked before. But again, if you're careful with how you write your code and if you're up to date with the practices, the coding practices, you will have no issues on the long run. But still, don't rely too much on it. Then you have deprecated syntaxes, like for example the Xlink href, which has been deprecated in favor of href. And if this is removed completely, you might have issues in the future. Integrated raster images pixelation. Now, we don't really notice this here, but let me show you into this. So I'm going to intentionally break the page so it doesn't show the object anymore. And if we're gonna replace the body, so I uncommented the previous body. You see, this is now generated over here. For some reason, the image is not showing. Now look what happens. The more I zoom out, this thing is becoming pixelated. And obviously this is happening within as a background itself. It's not an object, so it reacts a bit differently. But this is due to the fact that the image is embedded right now. You can kind of circumvent this by putting it externally and manipulating it through the XML, but it's kind of a chore. Still, right now you can't do anything because this is just generated like an image even though it's an SVG, but you can animate it, so it's cool for background animations. Okay, let's undo this. More. Okay, the next issue is the text formatting inconsistencies, which we have discussed. Although there are some ways around it, you can see that the text is not formatting correctly depending on how much we zoom in or zoom out. But you can kind of fix it with CSS, but it's really yeah, it's very difficult, and I just suggest you leave it as it is, or just try to avoid paragraphs and text in general, or try to convert it to directly into. But yeah, if you convert it into shapes, I mean into paths, you're gonna have issues with SEO, because SEO is usually looking for the context and for the content, sorry. And if you don't have any text, it can't read the text itself, then it's going to consider that your page is empty, and then you're going to get flagged because you're trying to insert into the search algorithm empty pages. So yeah, it's kind of a mess. And then there is the thing with the font family, but yeah, usually this applies to CSS as well and HTML. So you have to import it with the custom font from the external source and import it into the CSS and the SVG itself. But the advantage is that you can create awesome animations clearly, and you can do sort of like a front-end editing. Basically, all you have to do is just go here into your Inkscape, modify something, save, and then go into this, refresh, and voila, this will pop up here. Now let me show you something cool. Remember that I said that we could do buttons and things like that? Check this out. When I do this, it's, well, right now it's going out of frame. This is kind of a limitation because the text should zoom in or should enlarge itself, but in all directions. And you can do it, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops to do it correctly via CSS. So I will avoid doing it because it calculates from this corner for some reason. And it's much easier just to change the color or something like that. Now, we did some interesting things with buttons in the past, where we changed them when we were hovering them via JavaScript. But check this out. This is made with CSS. inside the SVG. So basically it's the same button, but when I hover over the button, I get this effect. And basically I am kind of changing the button itself. So I'm not replacing the button, I'm not hiding it and replacing it with a new button. It's the same button altogether. But again, some limitations here. I'm applying, in this case, a gradient. So my button has a gradient that goes from top to bottom, but when I hover, it applies a gradient from left to right. And I'm unsure yet how to fix this, how to redirect the gradient to go from top to bottom. But considering that it still looks okay, it's a nice addition. And it also changes the color of the text, so it becomes a bit brighter. Now let's have a look into our Inkscape and analyze what we have done to the button itself. So if we go here into our XML, we will notice that I have implemented a special tag which is called A, which is a link basically. So if I click this is also the reason why we get the hand icon when I'm hovering it. So if I click this, it will open into a new page and it's gonna go to Inkscape. The same is gonna happen to these buttons here on the bottom. But notice that each button is a separate link. So they basically act as normal links. And these ones are just text. And I'll show you how I did them in a moment. But first let's analyze this. So this is our entire group, and this group contains, first of all, the background shadow. And then I have wrapped a link. Sorry, I have wrapped the button inside the link. And this one has the target to go into a new place, to open a new window basically. And then the href refers to the location where the link will take us, in this case Inkscape. And then we have the button itself. And we have to keep track of these IDs because this is the group which contains, actually the link contains this group with the rectangle and the text itself. So if the text would be outside of the link, then the mouse cursor will change to a text selection instead of the hand. And it will only show the hand when you are outside of the text. It's kind of tricky. So put both the button and the link, the text, inside the link. And the shadow I kept outside. So this is one of the advantages of working with links directly into the SVGs, because you can kind of control this. But considering that you can actually do all of this in CSS, it's also very powerful to code it manually. In my opinion, it's much better to go with CSS and HTML purely without any SVGs, or minimize the use of SVGs. Because you have the ability to position exactly where you want, and you know that you won't have any inconsistencies between cross browsers. So all browsers will show the same. While with SVGs, it's kind of questionable. Obviously, nobody uses Internet Explorer anymore today, but there might be some issues with more experimental browsers. There are some flavors of Firefox, for example, like in my case I have WaterFox, but there is like MoonFox, LibreWolf, so many of them, I can't even remember. So some of them have limitations and things like that, and they might not parse the SVG correctly, but they won't argue when you're displaying things like CSS and HTML. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's have a look of how all of this is being manipulated in CSS. So basically in my style, I have imported this style CSS. Now let's have a look at the style CSS, which is right over here. And these are the lines of text. So basically this is the text that applies to this. And I'm saying increase the font size. The font size is about 4. And when I'm hovering it, it's going to a 5. And then this is for the button. Now I could have named the IDs and so on and so forth, but I left them as they were because it was much easier to identify them with the group names. So basically I'm going over the group in this case, not over the link. So our group is 119, right? So if we look over here, our group is 119. And this group encapsulates everything. The shadow, the link, the button, and the text. So I make sure that whenever I go over, like so, you see, I'm already over the shadow here. I could have gone only over the text, the button itself with the group or the link, but I chose to do it this way because I have a bit more flexibility to incorporate other elements if I need them. And then this will change the gradient. Now, this is an important thing, which is also called important. Usually, let's see if I can manage to select this in the document. Yeah, I can't remember where it is. Delimiter bottom corner. What the heck? Where did I put it? Oh, it's a bit difficult to find it. Let me try to open the SVG directly so I can showcase. Now this SVG has been cleaned a bit, it's not the original, because I've done a few small modifications for it to render correctly. As you can see, I have it here as well, and the text is still not displaying fine, and again I think it's because of the scale. Now, if we look at the file itself, here okay, so I have the link which is in group 119, okay? And lots of things are happening in here. Oh, I forgot what I wanted to showcase. Yeah, the important part. Why do we use this important with the question mark, the exclamation mark in front? This basically tells me that I have to put priority in changing this field. So in this group 119, I'm looking for a rectangle 114. So in 119, I'm looking for rectangle, should be over here, 114. Now the rectangle itself has a style applied to it. So when you apply CSS externally or through a class or anything like that, usually the browser looks first at what you have inside the style of the rectangle. And in this case it has a field and the URL towards this gradient 118. So this takes priority over anything externally. So if I would not put this important over here, it would not get replaced. So if I'm placing this externally, in this case because I'm importing the style from this file into the SVG, but even if I would have created a class inside the SVG itself, it would have still worked the same. So I would still have needed to import it, to put the important tag in here, attribute. So I'm telling it replace 118 with 117. Now again, I'm unsure how to control the direction because there is nothing related to direction. And maybe it needs additional elements because yeah, I should investigate this ID with 118 because this one is definitely in the defs. And let's see if we can find 117 here. 117 this. But it has nothing attached to it. Yeah, for now I'm unsure how this direction goes inside Inkscape. Quite interesting. This needs a little bit more research, but who knows, maybe I'll discover it. So yeah, this is how we have achieved it. So okay, and the next one, basically this refers to the text. So as I said, texts have spans in them, T-span. So I have to look, when I go over the group, I have to look for the ID text 114. Let's look at text 114. This one, and I have to take the first child. Well, it's the only child, but I'm telling it go and select the first child and fill what's inside the channel. Well, what's inside the child. Now, technically, I shouldn't tell it to apply it to the child, but unfortunately, SVGs seem to work a bit different than normal CSS with the divs and spans. So for some reason this one is taking precedence with the fill here. Yeah, so yeah, it's quite complicated to put it in simple words why I have to do it this way all the way, but this is the correct version. We have to attribute it to the child of the text, otherwise it's not parsing it correctly. CSS directly into SVGs are a pain, but they are working, which is nice. So let me just comment this out. And this one shouldn't change anymore. Okay, another thing to take into account is when making these things, make them as individual texts, because I have included the link directly over the text. So in this case, I've placed it inside here. Now, there are other ways to implement these links, and you can do it through the object properties. But it's quite difficult. Unfortunately, I don't see this version. There should be a href over here or something. And I don't know why it's not showing on my version on Inkscape. But now the object properties displays more things here. Oh, this is, yeah, the href is here actually with the anchor text, but this is more related to internal elements, to connect to an element inside the SVG. It's a different type of href. I didn't test it if it works exactly like this one. I just wrote it manually because I have more control. Now this button can also select where you want to, what things you want to be, I don't know, manipulated by the text file, by the, what the heck is this point over here? That's weird. By the link itself. But yeah, kind of weird. And I feel like this one uses the X reference, which is not ideal because it's not the same with href, and it will definitely not work if you're trying to send to a page, or browsers might find it iffy, and SEO definitely will scream at you not to do it that way. Oh, it was a little artifact. I'm a bit tired, so that's why I'm rambling a lot. Now, here I did an offset of this edge because I was having issues. Basically, I resized this to 400 by something, 600 or something like that. And for some reason, if I wouldn't have done this, inside our thing here, this would show a white edge. So it was kind of a mess. Yeah, it's painful. It's painful. But it's also very interesting. Now I really wish I could better format this. I would really need to redo the whole thing one-on-one, but for this experiment I'm gonna leave it as it is. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can add anything extra. Maybe some transitions to make this, but even so, I don't think it's all that important. Like for example, I can change the color of this to be a bit brighter. Why didn't you update? Okay, let's try a test, see if we can make the color brighter. So let's say, again, fill white important, just so we can overwrite. There we go. Ah, yeah. In this case, I have only associated with text 105. So let's have a look where these texts are. So this text is in here. Okay, let's do something smart then. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have around 5 pieces of text here. So I'm going to group it, and let's call this bottom text. Well, links actually. And this one has, let's see which ID, I think it's GID G3. Save. Yeah, it's in G3. So let's test it. I'm going to say G3. But this is gonna, damn it. Yeah, we don't want that. We want G3 hover on links. Let's test it this way. Hopefully it works. Damn it, it does not. Yeah, as I said, CSS in here really sucks. Text. Yeah, I am confused. So it works like this, but it doesn't work won't work from G3. What if we just call hover over all of the links? Okay, that seems to do the trick to some extent. But why doesn't it work if I put it like this? It should work. Okay, so now let's test it. Let's say we're gonna go light coral. So if I'm going here, it's still white. If I'm going down here, it's this reddish color. Yeah, okay, so now we have localized the hovering over here. So now if I go light blue over here, oh yeah, that's too light. Let's go magenta. Oh gosh, my eyes. Let's leave it on white, and I'll leave it on white as well. But as you can see, we have more control now over how things are displayed, and we can also apply the same to this button. Obviously I didn't set any anchor links to this one, so you can change the fill color. The fill color is uniform here, so it's easy to change it to a different fill color. But with gradients it's still kind of a pain, and we can do anything to everything. Now the one thing that you can't really do is hover over an element and change another unless they are inherited in the same group. It's quite complicated. You can do it with JavaScript, but not directly with CSS. I mean, it's possible with CSS to some degree, but The inheritance is a mess. I mean, it's not a mess, it's difficult because SVGs look different at CSS than, well, a bit different on how they implement it versus how it is implemented outside of it in HTML. I think that's about done for this one. It's functional, it's adorable. Okay, it works. Yeah, I'll definitely add a transition to this so it looks a bit more smooth. And I'll upload it to the drive, then you guys can play with it. Maybe in the future we'll do a better job. And the cool thing is we haven't used any JavaScript here. Although we could, but there is no reason to overcomplicate it. Okay, awesome guys. Have a wonderful day, night, eclipse or apocalypse. And I'll catch you in the next episode. Boy, 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 boy.